Welcome to the double shot with your favourite cousins and Mitch filling in for Little Apple, who's in the Big Apple. She wanted us to drop that. That was the first thing she put and the only thing that she put in our podcast notes this week. Welcome, Mitch.
Mate, pleasure to be here again. It's been a regular occurrence over the last sort of 30 days, but I'm enjoying it. And yeah, Little Apple's over there. I thought you took honeymoons after your weddings.
Well, I believe this is the pre-wedding commitment.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
So she's also...
a religious commitment.
Wait, so she's also taken leave after her wedding as well?
Yes.
Making up for lost time, our girl.
Correct. Her lovely partner, Dean, taking her over there to convert, which would be nice. So it'll be interesting to see how she goes. I can't say she's one that's been renowned for her ability to pass tests over the years. What do you reckon?
All C's in the multiple choice type of operator.
And I've given you cheers to the Hardy. You asked for a single shot, but I got you a double, my man, because I knew you've come in off a long weekend, had the Friday and the Monday off with a double day Bucks party. Mate, I retired from the double day Bucks party about 18 months ago. So talk me through it. How'd you go?
Look, on the double day, when you're interstate, you got no choice. Like you can't just sort of abscond after day one.
For the second day.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have as much control as you, James. But mate, it was a fantastic weekend. Kept a lid on it. Behaved myself, all things considered, and feeling pretty good today, particularly after the double shot you just got me.
Yeah, mate. Well, that'll go down very nicely. I have loved over the weekend watching the Commonwealth Games. I know you're a big fan of your athletics. More so than the other parts. I love the swimming.
I do love the swimming too.
I'm all about the Australian team, particularly Emma McCann. Like,
how good is she?
She's so modest, isn't she? Like the greatest Commonwealth athlete of all time. She's got more medals, I believe, than anyone.
Mate,
is that right? More medals or more golds?
More gold medals than Susie O, big Susie O'Neill.
Wow.
Got more medals than Ian Thorpe. And Liesl Jones, I believe. So, yeah, she's done very well. 12 medals, I believe. And now she has clocked up over her...
12 golds.
12 golds, I should say, over her Commonwealth Games career.
And the Channel 7 mob, they did the numbers on it in their post the 50-metre freestyle where she won the gold again. They reckon there's been 40,000 competitors at the Commonwealth Games. So she is number one out of 40,000.
Jeez. And I'll tell you what, isn't it good when Australia is just dominating?
Absolutely dominating, which we always do at the start of these events when we're not having to run around a track.
100%.
Because, let's just say that the track work. Having said that, though, female marathon, we did win that, which was a good race. They had 3 Australians. Marathon, it is a big time investment if you want to watch the marathon. It's about 2 hours.
I know you raised the marathon for one reason only. Go on, give us your time.
No.
Oh, it's pretty close to 3 hours. I'll do it for you, mate.
Something like 3 hours. Yeah.
Something like 4-minute case.
Very good. Any other highlights before we move on?
To be honest, like it started, I think, on Thursday, and from Friday to Sunday, I wasn't doing much watching. I was not doing a lot of watching TV, James.
But I took my wife, Han, to the movies on the weekend, watched Where the Crawdads Sing, and was doing a bit of research beforehand because Where the Crawdads Sing is a book that I'd read, and I thought, I wonder how it's going in the reviews. Stumbled across what isn't going to be but could easily have been had I not stumbled across another article today. Could have been the stat fact for the day, and that is this. Top Gun Maverick, now the 3rd highest grossing movie in Australia in all history, behind only 2 movies.
Wow. Jeez, behind Star Wars, Force Awakens, and Avatar. That's good company.
Correct.
And I'm almost ashamed to say I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen Top Gun Maverick?
Nah.
Oh, my.
Mate, I have a habit of waiting for movies to go from the cinemas to the comfort of my own home on Apple TV. And this one I might make an exception for. Is they still screening it?
Mate, you've just literally had a 2-day Bucks party. Taken Monday off to recover. Like, what better way to spend your Monday than to go and watch Top Gun in the cinemas?
Well, I'll tell you how I spent it. I watched an entire season on Apple TV called Severance, which was quite good.
Okay, anyway, Severance on Apple TV.
Severance on Apple TV for anyone that's looking for something to watch. Very weird, but couldn't stop watching.
It has clocked up $1.29 billion globally, which is number 2 behind Spider-Man No Way Home in the post-pandemic era.
Wow.
So It has been a very successful movie. If anyone hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it. I haven't heard a bad thing about Top Gun
I've
Maverick.
not heard one bad thing about it. So,
And
there
for
you go.
those who were more interested in Where the Crawdads Sing, also a good movie. So check that one out. All right, let's get this stinger going because I've got the stat fact this week.
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
Stat fact.
The stat man.
Stat fact.
Mitch, no shimmy again. Come on, mate. You got up your game.
There you go.
Now, you saw this in the notes.
I have
How
seen
many
it.
times did you have to read this to understand?
Look,
There's a bit of science in this.
Yeah, I'm still I'm at fourth time, and I'm excited for you to explain it to me, James.
I was going to run with Top Gun Maverick as the stat fact. Came across this in the Australian this morning, and I thought, this is too good. On Wednesday, the 29th of June, so a little over a month ago, midnight arrived 1.59 milliseconds earlier than it was supposed to.
Gee whiz.
Now, that is significant because it is the shortest, it's the first time in centuries that a day has gotten shorter. And Mitch, I'll put that in the most simple form that I can for anyone. By the way, I had to read this a few times myself because science is not a strong suit. No. So what has been happening is 1 year is measured the same way and always has been. It's exactly the same length of time, and that is the time it takes for the Earth to orbit the sun. So 1 year is always the same. When the dinosaurs were around many, many centuries ago, what actually happened is a year was the same period, but there was more days and nights because the sun and the moon would cycle more frequently.
Right.
Whereas the days have gotten longer and longer and longer, and we've had less and less days. That's been a trend going for centuries. But on 29th of June, the day was shorter. And scientists still do not know why.
Well, great. What's all that mean?
Well, they've only
What's it mean if our days are getting shorter?
It's an unexplained scientific event. Mate, the only thing they can come up with is they think the world wobbled.
Wobbled, hit a bit of a speed bump.
Just wobbled.
Yeah.
So there we go. We experienced one of the shortest days.
Mate, who's
in
timing
modern
all this,
times.
by the way? Like, if you've got a measurement of time, right, who's on the other clock? Like, is there two clocks running and one was 1.5 milliseconds shorter than the other?
There is a body of scientists that I'd never heard of who were credited with this statistic. And I've done them no justice. It's probably the first mention they would have got in probably nearly a century.
Yeah, well,
and the poor guys haven't.
It only happened on the. Sorry. I'm just
Nick, having a
worried
stab
because
at Mitchie.
29th of June is when it happened. Like, they've only tested the results for a month, and now they've published them. I reckon there needs to be more QA. In any event, not a bad stat fact there, James.
All right, so Mitch, Alex will be filthy because she loves the founders of Melanie Perkins, and they're good-looking young people that are worth billions and billions of dollars. Canva, a business that has grown very, very quickly, but they've had a bit of a rough run recently, haven't they?
A little bit of a rough run. Yeah, they are, in fact, topped the rich list last year, just FYI.
Whoa.
Those two. Yeah, the reason
Whoa.
I know that is because I was reading some article about an influencer from the Gold Coast who made the young rich list last year called Tammy Hembrow. So there you go, 38 million net worth. Anyway.
And what are these guys worth?
Oh,
You
like
know?
16 bill. Yeah. So like there's
Whoa.
there's these guys, daylight, then the influencer. just to clarify. But yeah, no, they've had a little bit of a rough trot. I mean,
we're not going to feel overly.
Look, I was just
sorry
about to
for them,
say,
are
whilst
we?
they've had a rough trot, if you looked at it from September 21 to now, I just want to give you a little bit of an idea about their journey. So Canva
Okay.
started June 2020, I think, where they were valued at $6 billion. By April 2021, they'd grown to $15 billion. So they'd more than doubled over that period within
during the pandemic.
during the pandemic, less than 12 months. By September 2021, so slightly over a year later, 40 billion, 15 billion into 40 billion. So growth of 160% over that period. And then by June 2022 or July 2022, where we are now, down to 25 billion. So they hit a little bit of a snag whereby they lost about 14 billion, according to their recent valuation, but not feeling overly sorry for them, given they've gone from 6 billion to 25 current val in 2 years. So it's growth of about 316%.
And so I guess the question that I go to first is what do they earn to
Well-
be worth so much money? Like
Yeah.
how profitable is it as a business?
Yeah.
To be worth, $25 billion still is a lot of money. It's not $40 billion,
lot of
but
money.
it's still a lot of money, right?
A lot of money. So 2020, I think they earned $700 billion in revenue.
Million?
700 million, I should say, in revenue. And then
That'd be a bargain if they earned 700 billion.
Where do I buy?
So 700 million, that's just revenue. That's not profit.
No, revenue. And
Right.
then, I don't know what the profit was. And then in 2021, I think it's looking as though it would be about $1 billion.
$1 billion. So they earn $1 billion. So it's pretty much they need 25 years of earning that kind of revenue, let alone profit, before you get your money back on a $25 billion valuation.
Yeah, outrageous.
Unbelievable. And they're not on their own either. I read to a link. You go from link to link on some of those media websites.
You go on an internet rabbit hole.
You do, and before you know it, you got 6 windows open. And what I could see is it's a wider trend. The tech companies have been getting an absolute pasting over the past few months, starting with Amazon. They made a $2 billion loss, Amazon, just in a quarter. Now, for perspective, last year they made a $7.8 billion profit. They are such a big company, hey. That's
huge.
Profit. That's that's not revenue like Canva. And they made the $2 billion loss off a $121 billion revenue. Wowee. That is a lot of money. And the revenue was up. So they've made 7% more revenue, yet they've absolutely dived and made a loss. And apparently it's because they went and bought too much warehouse space.
Right. So they've got higher costs as a result. Is that?
So they were because they were growing so quickly, they've just gone and bought all these warehouse spaces, come to their investors and said, hey, turns out we actually bought a little bit too much warehouse space and we put a little bit too many people in those warehouses.
So, right.
So we made a $2 billion loss.
Yeah. And interesting, as you say, revenue's up. So
revenue's
riddle
up.
me that.
I don't know enough to be able to understand. Just know that the tech company's really struggling. Apple, on the other hand, they made a $19 billion. Wow. That is a $19 billion profit.
And what was their revenue?
Off $83 billion.
Yeah, right.
So
and that was also
high profit percentage.
Yeah, huge.
Very high profit percentage. It makes sense. They are the leaders in the smartphones, you would assume.
Yeah.
And their sales are actually up, but the tablets, wearables, and Macs are down. So the iPhone's up.
iPhone's holding the
all
team
the
up.
other stuff. Correct.
Putting the rest of the team on the shoulders.
Correct. And now Google. I don't know if you want to dovetail this into something that you've Googled in the last week, because that's a segment Alex has been trying very hard to get off the ground.
Googled yesterday IV drips to your house. I heard someone say, like medically, all good.
And where did it lead you?
I lost interest. Severance took over, and I didn't worry about it, and thought probably not ideal. Some bloke just rocking up.
What are you going to eat? A vitamin C
Mate,
or hydrolyte?
apparently, it's like a pure hangover cure, and and you can recover in a couple of moments. But anyway, sorry, you were going to say Alphabet or Google. What did they make in the same quarter?
So Apple made $19 billion against the loss for Amazon of $2 billion.
Yep.
Google, their parent company is called Alphabet. They had a net profit of $16 billion. Very, very high. That was actually down 14% off the previous quarter. So it's $16 billion and $19 billion just in a quarter. These companies are seriously licensed to print money.
And I can see here revenue up as well for Google. So all those 3 companies you've mentioned, Amazon, Apple, and Google, have all had increases in revenue but decreases in profit.
Correct.
Over the last quarter.
So Amazon have blamed the warehouses. Alphabet or Google, they've blamed the data centers. Building a bunch of data centers, and the costs of building the data centers has gone up.
Right.
Which has caused them to not make as much money as they thought, which makes sense. Costs of construction going up everywhere.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're building a house or a data center.
Or a data center for that matter. But Microsoft, a little bit of a standout, James.
Defying the odds.
Big
Microsoft.
Billy.
Correct. Bill Gates' company there. They made $52 billion in sales last quarter. That's up 12% from the year earlier, and their profit rose by 2% to nearly $17 billion. So they are making the most profit. They're nearly, what's that? $17 billion off $52 billion. There is a lot of profit margin
That's
in
huge.
Microsoft products.
Well, you're dead right, because out of those 4 companies, they've had the lowest revenue and highest profit on percentage.
Correct.
So what are they putting that all down to?
Well, they are saying that LinkedIn, very popular search engine.
Well. I'll tell you what, I reckon our girl Alex,
So they own LinkedIn.
LinkedIn connoisseur, would have been contributing to that.
Connoisseur. A lot of people spending more and more on advertising jobs through LinkedIn. That's been a big
Makes
cause
sense.
of it. And the cloud.
The cloud.
SharePoint.
Yes.
As companies use more and more of the cloud storage, they're charging
Makes sense.
people for that.
And
that
I imagine
privilege.
that's a relatively low cost as well, like hence why, their revenues are lower and their profits up if cloud is contributing to that. I don't know what your costs are. Like, how do you, data center? Maybe Google next year are going to capitalise on that space if they're building all the data centers. Who knows?
So, Mitch, a bit of a theme here because companies are starting to report whether they made money or not over the past 12 months. The tech companies in Canva, they've copped a bit of a bashing. One company that's sort of starting to go the other way but has been absolutely smashed in the past 2 years is Flight Centre. Talk us through what's going on over there. Is there some green shoots and some optimism?
Mate, absolutely. And, don't let the numbers fool you because they're still not making money, right? But they're making more than they thought they would.
Okay.
So to put that into perspective, Flight Centre in FY21.
So last year.
Yeah,
Year before last year.
Yep, correct.
Yep.
So not the most recent financial year. They lost $338 million from a $4 billion turnover. So tough year, but not unexpected given no one could travel.
No.
You wouldn't have, if you're making money as an travel agent.
I was going to say $4 billion of turnover with international borders surprises me.
Yeah. And so last financial year, they only lost $185 million.
So they've halved it.
Yes, halved it, but turnover up to $10 billion. So they made $10 billion in revenue. So
2.5 times.
Now,
2.5 times. Yeah, 4 to 10, 2.5 times.
Now,
okay.
whilst you, as an investor or a shareholder, you're probably thinking, come on, guys, they're still losing money. But they expected in last financial year that they'd be about $225 million down. So, as compared to where they were forecasting they'd be at, doing a lot better. And they're still saying that by Christmas, the Australian outbound, air traffic capacity is still going to be down at about 80%. So we're still not at 100% yet. So greener shoots, absolutely, particularly as we start to travel more and more. And I don't know about you, but I've got at least 1 in 2 friends that are traveling somewhere, whether that's European summers or Bali. That seems to be where everyone's going.
Correct. And I'm not sure, does Flight Centre own Webjet?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
We booked our flights to going to Europe, Hannah and I, in September, October, and went through Webjet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure Flight Centre would be a comparison.
I can hear producer Nick's typing away, so we'll find out very shortly.
And what I would say is I did have cause when he sent me those numbers, I thought, I wonder what, if they'd be a good investment.
Yeah.
Caveat this statement by saying I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to shares, so do not take my advice. It turns out, by the way, before I get to that point, that Webjet is owned by Sendant, which is associated with Avis. So Avis owns Webjet. There you go. Avis, the hire car.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you, producer Nick.
That's very good.
Where I was going with that is, are they a good investment? Their share price was $42 pre the pandemic, Flight Centre.
Yes.
It is today trading at $18, so a significant haircut. But who knows? For someone who might be able to do a bit more research or ask someone who does know what's going on in the share market, it may be that you could do the Warren Buffett and be greedy when others are fearful, because it does look like things can't get any worse.
No, they were at a low of $9. So they're up from $9 to $18. So it looks as like they're trending upwards. Again, I know even less than James about the stock market.
So they were saying, the Flight Centre guys, that there is still capacity issues in the Australian airports. And speaking of the Australian airports, they have copped a hammering in a recent report. So OAG is an analytics firm that basically rank 665 of the biggest airports in the world, and they rank them on their ability to actually deliver the flight and their ability to be on time.
Deliver the flight and be on time.
So for it not to get cancelled or delayed.
Yes, good. I was saying delivering the flight should be yeah, if they're not getting there, problems.
You say that, but apparently 3 in 10 flights in Australia today get cancelled. So that's not a fait accompli either.
Yeah, wow.
We haven't done well. In fact,
where are we at?
In fact, we've done very, very poorly. Melbourne has finished 631 out of 665.
Jeez.
Sydney somehow. Now, I don't know about you, but Sydney has finished above Melbourne. It is the worst place to try and travel from at the moment. Finished 597th out of 665. So still not high. Bit of comparison, Heathrow, London, 642nd. So it ranked behind even Melbourne.
Wow.
Amsterdam, 658th. And Los Angeles somehow has come in above Sydney and Melbourne in 431st.
Jeez. And question without notice, but do you know what number one, like what was the best airport on those criteria you just read out?
I do not know.
Producer Nick?
I do not know.
All good.
OAG best airport. What I will tell you though, and I'm going to ask you this.
Yep.
What do you say are the best ranking airports to go to in terms of the experience in Australia of the ones you've been to?
Without hesitation, Perth Airport. You and I were both there last week, and I reckon from arrival at the drop-off to your gate, 15 minutes max, like provided you've checked in, was the easiest, most efficient airport I've been to. Now, in saying that,
you don't have to do anything through security. You don't have to take your bag in. You don't have to take laptops out, toiletries, nothing. Ooh, Perth's...
Australian
okay,
one.
so Perth is ranked 5th in Australia. That is a rort.
Mate,
it has to be number one. No, that is outrageous.
Oh, wow.
So I believe Perth would have to be in the top 10.
I think
if Sydney's 597th.
For me, I look at if you have to take your laptop out of your bag to go through security, it's not a good airport. And I know in Perth you don't have to, and in Sydney and Melbourne you do. So that's my pet hate is having to take everything out of your bloody bag. You should just be able to put it through all at once, get to your gate.
Agree. Doha is the number one airport. Can you believe that?
Doha.
In fact, I probably would believe that because there seems to be a lot of flights that go there. So in Qatar there, Doha being
Tokyo, Haneda number 2 and Singapore, Changi number 3. Yeah, fair enough.
There it goes. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Perth. Let's just finish on Perth because there is a slight, albeit it is a bit of a stretch to go segue to this. Nigel Satterley. Now, you and I love to read about Nigel Satterley because he doesn't say anything to the media unless he's got an ulterior motive.
Oh, hidden agenda, Nigel.
Hidden agenda, Nigel. The moment he starts talking down the market, the next week he's bought something.
He's bought something, exactly right.
The moment he starts talking up the market, the next week he's sold something. So we take what he says with a grain of salt, but he is one of the biggest private developers in Australia, the biggest private developer in Perth. Has the property development company called Satterley.
Yes.
And he's gone on to say that he thinks that we've hit the peak in terms of the challenges to build in Perth today, which has been regarded as the most difficult place to build, with build costs gone up about 35% since the pandemic started.
And this is what I love about Nige, gone up 35%, and then he makes a little reference to continuing to grow at 1% per month. He's
it's only 12% in a year.
Not too bad, but still negative outlook. And he reckons 6 months to get through what he's calling the Perth construction cyclone.
Correct.
That's a long time. But yeah, I would say that, being over in Perth, the building, it did look challenging from a builder to be over there at the moment. And I think that was, a lot of them were saying that the government projects and infrastructure that they're deploying is sucking a lot of resources out of the building industry as well as the development industry, and that in turn has led to lower supply and higher costs. So it does make sense.
Skill shortages, however, he says that the pipeline for builders is currently at 8,200 and that's shrinking.
Yes.
8,200 homes. So we might keep an eye on that. See, number one,
mate, where's he buying?
Where the trend goes. Number two, why did he put this in the media?
Yeah, 100%.
All right, Mitch, houses are in free fall. If you read the papers, absolutely diving. Sell while you can. The biggest crash in history. However, house price data did come out yesterday. And what did we learn from the house price data? What's actually going on? There's a saying that there's only truth in numbers. What's the truth?
There is. So, contrary to what you would read, every capital city in Australia except for Sydney and Melbourne are up year to date. Now, I will say, though, it has been easing. And if you look at it month to month, I think every capital city except for Adelaide and Darwin have declined over the last month.
No, and Perth.
Sorry,
Adelaide and
Perth
Yep.
as well. Yeah,
Correct.
But if we look at it, so Sydney down 4.8% year to date.
Mm-hmm.
Melbourne down 3.6%. Brisbane and Adelaide up. Brisbane up by 8.2% year to date. Adelaide up 11.7%. Perth up 4.5%. Canberra up 2.8%. And nationally, we've declined by 0.5% year to date, being driven, as you can see there by that data, largely by Sydney and Melbourne. So they're the numbers.
So not a lot. Not a lot. Now, there was a very interesting perspective to come out of CoreLogic and other commentators on this, that majority of it seems to be in the top end of the market.
Yes.
Whereas there's a slightly different trend maybe occurring in the more affordable markets throughout Australia. So I think it was CoreLogic and another company called PropTrack.
Yeah.
Who've monitored, a bit more of the detail on that one.
Yeah, so they've monitored the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast local government areas, and they've actually determined by what they're seeing that the more affordable markets are actually showing growth versus the $1.5 million higher markets, which have actually shown a bit of a fall. So if you look at Gold Coast, markets like Jacobs Well, Maudslin, Lower Beachmont, Runaway Bay, well, Runaway Bay is probably a bit of an exception there, but, relatively affordable markets are
Sort
all
of
up.
$1 million or under type of thing.
Yep. And then whereas if you look at the top 5 suburbs that have fallen, you're talking about Mooloolaba, Sunshine Beach, Alexandria Headland, all the ones that are sort of around that $2 million median house price.
Yeah.
So, I guess what you read into that is that the middle market or the market around the median house price is typically a little bit more durable to those that are in the upper quartile when, from these economic conditions we're going through.
And look, I thought there was an interesting comment from a gentleman by the name of Tom Offerman. If you've ever been to Noosa, he's everywhere. He's like the mayor of Noosa, probably sells, nearly half of all the homes in Noosa.
Would have had a good couple of years.
Would have had a great couple of years. And normally you take agents' opinions with a grain of salt, in all honesty. But having said that, he was asked about the fact that Noosa's house price has declined 12% over just the past 3 months. He was saying, though, he thinks it's more reflective of the sales that are going through. Specifically, he says, we haven't actually seen prices drop on a like-for-like. I'm not selling a house for less than I was last year if it's the same house. What's happening is some buyers are holding back and there's just less sales occurring.
Right.
So we've got a smaller sample size to go off.
Yes.
Which was an interesting perspective because, I guess they can only form a view on what house prices are doing based on the data. And if there is less sales or the sales are in a certain price point, it may tell a slightly different story to what's actually going on.
So he's putting it more down to transaction volume ahead of demand-driven issues.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
right.
He thinks that there's just less homes selling.
Yes.
So there's
Okay.
less data to use rather than, say, a home that was bought last year selling for 12% less than what it sold for last year.
So it's not a like for like is what he's sort of getting at. Yeah.
I wouldn't sort of, as I say, hang my hat on it, but it's an interesting
Interesting
perspective
take
and
for
it
sure.
does make sense if you think about it.
Very good. So, James, hot off the press, the RBA decision has come down. Over to you.
Yeah, so
What are we dealing with?
Well, the Reserve Bank, they've put the cash rate up by 0.5%, so 1.85%. Bit of perspective, that is slightly above now the 10-year average. Still pretty much a full percent, in fact 1.2% below the 20-year average. So relatively it's sort of still pretty low, and that's what the Reserve Bank's commentary is, largely to use Alex's often quoted term. This is a copy-paste job. and basically the same things that were happening last month. The war's still happening. The pandemic hasn't necessarily passed just yet. Still feeling the effects of the floods in our grocery stores. So they just said, look, because there's still a fair bit of inflation, we're going to put the rates up and get a little bit further back to normal. They have, however, gone one step further to say, look, we're watching household budgets. We're seeing how much people are spending, how much they're earning, and if we start to see household budgets go backwards, we may look to wind back, bringing rates up. So there's nothing surprising, but good to know that they're going to watch our household budget and actually do something if we're not going forward.
Yeah. And they often talk about inflation and targeting an underlying inflation rate between 2 to 3%. Did that come up?
Yeah, it did. They want 2 to 3%. They are forecasting now that we're going to see inflation go up a little bit further in the back end of 2022. It's then going to come back to 3% by 23 or 24. Having said that, though, I find that their forecasts are a little bit unreliable here because they also said that we'd be having interest rates at the point that they were at till 2024.
I do remember that.
So look, you take their forecasts with a grain of salt. Inflation, though, let's talk about it because Australia's inflation rate, it's getting a lot of airtime, but it's actually not that bad compared to other countries around the world. In fact, Australia is 6.1%. France is pretty much the only developed Western country that's got a better inflation rate than Australia at 5.8%. New Zealand, Germany, all these other big countries faring a lot worse than Australia today, aren't they?
I thought this was a typo, but our friends in Venezuela, you're telling me they're currently experiencing inflation at 167%. Surely that's a typo.
I don't know what is happening in Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
But they're having a rough run. I mean, Russia makes sense. Russia's got the highest besides Venezuela at 16%. You can't get anything into Russia.
No, that makes sense. that definitely makes sense, but Venezuela not so much.
UK's very high too, 9.4%. I don't know whether they're affected probably by the Russia thing.
Yeah, right. So not too bad compared to the other developed nations across the globe.
Correct. But I thought we'd finish on your little tip for investors and homeowners out there around rates. There's a little hack to save yourself as rates go up, isn't there?
There is, and I've just done it myself. My partner and I just did it, and it's getting your bank to revalue your home, right? A lot of people don't do that, right? And if you haven't done it for 6 months, particularly if you haven't done it for 12 months or 24 months, what you can do by getting your house revalued is it actually lowers your loan-to-value ratio. And to put that into context, currently ANZ, so loan-to-value ratio, if it's 80%.
So that means you've put down a 20%
deposit and relative to your value, the balance 80%, you will get a rate of 3.29%. Okay. So 3.29% with ANZ. Now, for a 90% loan-to-value ratio, same package, that goes up to 4.23%. So, almost a 4% savings just from dropping your LVR. And you might be able to do that by nothing else than calling your bank and getting them to do another valuation.
And that would pretty much apply to anyone who's bought in the last 12 months, probably even 6 months, where they bought on a 90% loan value ratio. The property's probably gone up 10%.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're sitting at 80%. They'll save themselves, what was that, a whole percent on the interest rate?
Yeah, almost, yeah.
There you go. So, and as far as I know, you can do that anytime.
Anytime.
There's no restrictions.
Otherwise, tell them you're going elsewhere, and then they'll do a new val. So that's what we did. They did it, and we dropped from 3.8 to 2.1, and it's edging back up now, but still ahead.
There you go. You've gone out with a bang, Mitch. In fact, We'll get you back next week because I think Alex won't be back till midweek. So we will see you next week.
Or she
You'll
won't.
be coming back for the return visit.
Lovely.
Have a great week, guys, and we'll be back for the quick shots later this week.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. If you've got a burning question or something we absolutely need to talk about on the pod, please write to us. Both of our emails are in the show notes. For little real estate tidbits and a little bit of banter, a lot of banter, you can follow us on the gram. Our handle is thedoubleshot.podcast. That, my friends, is thedoubleshot.podcast. Until next time, think of us when you sit back and sip your next double shot.